Let's just go ahead and get this started. It's 7:59. It should be 8 o'clock any second now. Usually these are the longest minutes of our lives, and we're counting down to the very tail end of it. But we're just going to go ahead and hit the button now because we have quite a bit we want to talk about. There it is. There's 8 o'clock. Good Friday evening, everybody. It is December 15th, a fateful eve before this, not necessarily an unprecedented event, but definitely one for the books. One of our more strong El Nino types of situations getting ready to unfold for the Florida Peninsula. And we have a lot to talk about, and I'm going to admit, and you guys can probably see the little subtle smile on my face, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. Not in a bad way, but I mean just, we have a big day and possibly a big next 24 hours for the Weather Center because we're going to be hoofing it out there in the elements. And we're going to see what happens. I'm a little nervous, low-key, because not only do I want to give you guys as proper of content and coverage as possible, but at the same time, it's either going to be a bust or it's going to be a hellacious event. I don't think there's going to be any in between here. I don't think we're going to, have moments of, yeah, it got intense, but nothing too crazy. I think it's either going to be nothing or we're going to be smack dab in the middle of something pretty crazy. We'll go ahead and say hello to everybody in the chat, and you can already tell it's a special type of evening. Brewed up another cup of coffee after a long work day. It's kind of like starting the day from scratch because we have a lot to dig into for sure. Pat's Path Predictor, welcome in. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thinking of doing some sort of collaboration if he is available tomorrow. While I am out running around in the streets, he might provide a little bit more visibility from a studio perspective with overlays, radar, satellite imagery. We're working on that in the background. Carmen, welcome in. Thank you very much for joining. Linda, Judy, Eric, Mick and Marley, Dylan, Christina's, Mr. Florida, Daniel, PM, Supercharas, welcome in everybody. Say Jay, what's going on? What's up? Gary, hello there from Brandon. Brandon, I'm going to be out in that general area tomorrow. Amanda Kirby, welcome in. Let's hope it's not a bust. We're going to look at a few things tonight, and I'm definitely reevaluating where it is that we're going to be chasing tomorrow. And it's another reason why I'm anxious, because the AOR for us to look out for is just expanding. And I think that's in part due to not only the center of the storm, but also the interaction we're going to have with our cold boundary transitioning off the East Coast and over the Gulf Stream. Because I'm noticing that the FV3 and the NAM 3 kilometer particularly are starting to really amp up our possible severe weather and tornado threat off the East Coast. So Miami, Fort Lauderdale spanning further to the north. So now I'm kind of like, shucks, do I go west? Do I go east? Do I do a big old loop-de-loop? Do I have time to do a loop-de-loop? Will I have the energy, the gas, etc.? Lots to discuss and lots of planning that I'm going to probably be up late tonight charting out. But car is ready to go. Car is outfit with everything. I have my 5-gallon jug in the hatch. I have it secured using my bungee cords. I've got my camera set up ready to go. We're only using one studio light tonight because my other one has been packed up alongside my other camera equipment. As soon as this live stream is done, I'm packing this camera in there as well. Got my lapel mics charged up and ready to rock and roll. My rain gear, my boots, everything. So we're we're going full Jim Cantore mode, not going to lie. And this is exactly what's going to happen going forward with this channel as well, guys. I'm really excited for an opportunity to have a bit of a lesser event than a major hurricane, God forbid, in the future. That I get to test the waters and provide some coverage for you guys. So this will be a good trial and error experience while I go storm chasing. One of the big things I already know I'm going to have to invest in is a wireless puck, is what we used to call them when I was deployed, to where I can get Wi-Fi connectivity, in a mobile device, as opposed to having to be hard plugged in or rely on just my 5G network. You can actually see I already have my magnetic devices attached to my phone so I can mount it on my dashboard. And you guys will have a perspective of me as I drive. And before we get started, just to kind of give you a brief synopsis of how tomorrow and through Saturday and into Sunday morning is going to work, is A lot of it, to tell you the truth, is mainly going to be me on the road. I'm going to go live during different portions of the storm chase, mainly just to interact with you guys and answer questions and make observations live, whether it be on YouTube, on Instagram. It'll more than likely be on YouTube, which is why I'm coordinating with Pat's Path Predictor for him to step in and provide that presence from in the office space and give us overlays on radar, satellite model data, etc. Since I'm not really going to be able to demonstrate or display that, guys, while I'm on the road and en route, etc. So that's mainly what's going to be happening. This is it, though. We already have cyclogenesis beginning to take shape. It's starting to happen. You can see we have lots of upper level Give me 1 second. My dog's acting like Michael Myers is outside. Nico, what are you barking at? What are you doing? Where are you? No one cares, dude. I'm sorry. You're not menacing enough. Jeez. Homie flips out as if anyone's going to be intimidated by a little mini schnauzer. No one's going to be scared of him. Sorry about that. But yes, actually, Mick and Marley, I agree. To tell you the truth, if I'm being bluntly honest, Pat was one of the first persons I thought of to actually initiate this potential collaboration. I've asked other folks in the past, other different YouTube sources if they'd be interested in collaborations, and I was kind of just shut down. And from early in hurricane season, when I first started my YouTube channel, Pat was one of the few folks who really showed genuine support, and we collaborated and discussed behind the scenes, off the camera, and it was a good experience, very professional, very cordial, and he was one of the first persons I thought of to be like, hey, you know what? We could use some help. Since I'm a one-man army here at the Weather Center, I'm going to be out of the Weather Center, and I won't be able to give you guys radar overlays and whatnot and so forth because I'm not that established just yet. This is all still a learning experience for me. So, hopefully we can get that put together and we'll figure it out. Cyclogenesis is starting, though. We have a really good cirrus overcast deck over the state of Florida with some good rain showers that have been on and off in the south portions of the peninsula. You can kind of see it right in through here if you guys look through that cirrus overhang that's been blowing off like this because of our subtropical jet. There is some rain activity already going on for South Florida. Saw some sprinkles earlier today when I was out rain-Xing the windows on my cars, just to give you an example. So there is rain already out there, and the winds have been hellacious. Matt F150, if you're in the chat, he mentioned to me earlier today that he lost a lot of his Christmas decorations, which is a shame. That's kind of what I had a bad feeling was going to happen, at least preliminarily. Right now, we just have our onshore flow that we're dealing with, 30, 35, 40 mile per hour winds out of the east. And I do think that's what some of our high-res models are picking up on in terms of why they're kind of expanding that severe weather threat. I do believe at the surface, because of the interaction between our developing low pressure and that anticyclone or that high pressure that's kind of meandering and marinating, if you will, over the mid-Atlantic, northeastern United States, providing us with that easterly component, there's going to be some surface confluence. There's going to be additional confluence that's going to help to increase the amount of surface-based lift that we get. It's not only going to be the convective buoyancy that we've talked about on my TikTok and on other videos. I do think that just overall mechanical forcing we're going to see because of these low-level winds that are converging like so is going to help to ignite a little bit of additional upward vertical motion with some of these showers and storms out there, and I think that's what the model is pinging on. And as they lift, that's when we're going to start to see a little bit more of the shear spin those things. I think that's what the models are picking up on. So yeah, here's windy. I'm going to show you guys windy, the overlay. You can see we are definitely starting to see our broad low-level spin take shape. It is very pronounced. Still has mainly just some really organized cyclonic curvature to it just yet. We don't have, or I should say we don't have a closed low as of just yet. It's getting there, though. It's definitely getting there. Right now, we have our wind gusts associated with this system. And to tell you the truth, guys, I almost wonder if our models are somewhat under forecasting what type of a wind event we could see along the southwest and the western coast of Florida. Because looking at these gusts, this is a huge pocket of already above 40-knot winds. If you guys look down in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm in the way, unfortunately, you can't see it, but these blues and these shades of what look to be purplish magenta, we're already at the 50, 60-knot gust threshold right here because of the interaction around our high. If you see these prevailing easterlies coming off of our high pressure that's been stagnant, like I said, along the eastern seaboard of the United States. If you could imagine, as this gets going and we have our winds circulating around the low pressure, all that's going to happen is like a thumb to a fire hose, if you will. We have our isobaric pattern of the pressure gradient around our high pressure like so. I'm going to very quickly doodle this in, so please don't judge my drawing. And then as this low begins to spin, we're going to have its own little isobaric pattern spreading around it. And if you look right in through here, what's already happening, and I'll expand the color so you guys can see what I'm highlighting. Right in through here, we're already seeing those two systems smudge against each other like so. And as those isobars get more and more tightly packed, it's like putting a thumb to a water hose, and the water is only going to come out even faster because it has a smaller space to go in between. Same process here. As we go from high pressure to extreme low pressure, and that difference begins to increase, you're essentially putting your thumb over a fire hose, and that's why we already have that significant tunnel of wind flow that's going through the Bahamas, obviously on our east coast and off the west coast, helping to already recede some of the waters that are along the west coast in Tampa Bay, further to the south, and we already have that channel of 50, 60 knot wind gusts right out ahead of it. So my big question is now, are we going to see this dissipate as this high potentially begins to weaken and allow this to spill further to the north, or are we going to see this area of winds kind of translate over and start to impact the west coast of Florida? That's going to be a big question. I haven't really noticed it too much on the models. In fact, the models are not really initializing too well with that. I've been looking at all of our high-res model data and our operational models we typically lean on, like the GFS, the NAM, the Euro, etc., and none of them are really showing these strong of winds out there across the Gulf just yet. So it makes me wonder if we're in for another problematic setup to where our models might be under forecasting the full extent of our winds. Time will tell. We'll see. Yes, Odell's Legacy, definitely tornado threat for Orlando. I'll show you guys that here in a moment. And Carmen, thank you very much for the $10 donation. I really, really appreciate that. I know you'd mentioned in the comments that you're thinking of donating a little bit of gas money to get me around where it is we're going to be traveling tomorrow and into Sunday morning. All right, let's see. So we're going to quickly look at the ensembles. I know it's not tropical season, but, you know, it's good to see that both of our models now, you look at the Euro and we have a very, very strong consensus of where this system is going to hit. We definitely have the nice general agreement. We have a couple of strays that still bring it into the Big Bend area, but about 90% of our models definitely have it tracking right into the Tampa-St. Pete area, if not just to the north of there, closer to Cedar Key, just to the north of where Clearwater, and I believe... Never mind. I'm not going to try to name geographic locations. I'll pull up a map here in a little bit. Same thing goes for the GFS. GFS, we can get a little closer, and if you look, all the ensemble members are thinking exactly the same thing. So all of our models are singing in unison, thankfully, so we at least have that nailed down to our advantage. This is where it's going to get interesting. So we're going to use pivotal weather because when I tried to pull up tropical tidbits, it kept giving me some weird error. I'll show you guys right now, as a matter of fact, if it keeps doing it. All right, so we have this. Yeah, see, I'm not sure what's going on with tropical tidbits, but for some reason it's kind of pooping out on us. I'm getting a bad gateway, so we're going to rely on pivotal weather for a little bit. We'll take advantage of my little subscription that I have with them, and we'll go from there. So this is going to be our 3-kilometer NAM. This is one of our high-resolution models, the NAM Nest, and as we go through time, we are already seeing those strong storms and showers developing over the Gulf of Mexico. This is going to be as we go into the next couple of hours. If you look at the timestamps, this is 0Z on Saturday. So if you factor in the fact that this is universal time, it's actually what's occurring right now. And we already have good shower and thunderstorm activity over the Gulf. And as you transition this through, this is why I'm thinking that we're seeing a little bit of confluence in the low levels associated with the wraparound flow around our high and the initial push of some different wind speeds and wind changes and fluctuations in the prevailing winds around our low. Because notice right in this general area here, even the NAM Nest is thinking we're going to get some stray thunderstorm activity that's going to flourish early in this system's arrival. And it's going to persist, wrapping around the center portions of the peninsula, cutting right through Brevard, Osceola, Orange, up into Marion County, Seminole County, etc., Polk County. Same thing with Hillsborough County, and so on. Let me clear the ink. And as you can see, this is why it's a little difficult to nail down where it is we're going to be going, because I do think that there is going to be a very, very subtle risk for rotation in these storms that are firing over the Gulf Stream and moving into southeast Florida, just maybe to the north of where Fort Lauderdale is, kind of right through Boca Raton, where my grandmother is, as a matter of fact. And then we have all this madness that's unfolding off the west coast that I do think is going to help to increase our flood risk. We're going to start seeing a little bit of miniature storm surge with it as well, and the tornado threat's going to go up. As you continue through the loop, you see that a large majority of those really bad storms are forecast to hit the Tampa-St. Pete area. And not only is that initial secondary swath, we'll call it, of this bad hellacious weather right over top the Tampa-St. Pete area, Central Florida, moving up towards Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, Ocala, Gainesville, that I do think is going to have a lot of rotation with it, but it's also going to be these trailing appendages right here. 1, 2, 3, and then a little fourth one right here, even though it's off the coast. These little dendrils, or whatever you want to call them, are also going to have possible rotation in them, because we're going to be on the south side of this system, where our low-level winds are now going to propagate from the east, or the west, I should say, and in the upper levels, we're still going to see a little bit of that rotational shear as we go up vertically in the atmosphere. So, prolonged event, I do think initially, right about here, is when we're going to likely be underneath the majority of our significant tornado threat. And it's unfortunate because if you look at the timestamps, according to our NAM, there is still some wobbling back and forth with this. Between 0 and 4 or 5 Zulu is when it starts to finally push ashore. We could be seeing some tornadic activity out towards Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, the Space Coast, if you look at this projected feeder band that's out there. We'll have to see exactly how well this initializes and verifies as we wake up tomorrow to see exactly... Let's go back in time. We'll go to Saturday at 12Z. So if we're starting to see pockets of isolated convection in South Florida and we get this mess of activity off the west coast in the eastern Gulf, we can determine that this model may be more or less reliable. There he is. Tornado Genesis, welcome in. Good to see you. Tornado Genesis and I have also been speaking on Instagram. We might be able to link up and actually do some collaborative storm chasing in the field together. So I'm glad that you're in here, buddy. Good to see you. Here is going to be our mixed layer cape. And now I will admit, on the NAM 3 kilometer, the ML cape looks far more impressive than what we've been seeing on our other models. Here we go. So I know the colors don't look too spectacular. The color coding on this chart, particularly on this website anyways, I should say, is a little misleading. I know initially these colors don't look like very much, but if you look down... It might be hard for you guys to see the legend. I'm looking at the actual YouTube shared screen, and it's tiny from my perspective. All these darker shades of gray, milky gray, blue, steel kind of colors are already between 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, with some very small clusters of above 2,000. Look at these yellow shades off the East Coast and down near the Florida Keys, Southwest Florida Peninsula. Those are going to be areas where we have in excess of 2,000 joules per kilogram of cape, mixing layer cape or mixed layer cape, which is what we want to use because we have different parameters from all levels of the atmosphere in play here. We're not looking at a surface level event or just relying solely on surface heating and, diurnal buoyancy, if that makes sense, which is your day to night transitions, kind of like the atmosphere's circadian rhythm for our folks familiar with how we sleep and how when our body knows when to produce melatonin and when we go to bed and we naturally feel sleepy at the end of the day. Same thing. If you ever hear the term diurnal, that's basically the difference between daytime and nighttime. And when the atmosphere is more buoyant, more unstable, more uncapped because of daytime heating provided by the sun and other environmental factors. And then overnight, we typically see stabilization because we have that surface cooling, diurnal cooling as we call it. And so in this case, we want to use our ML cape because we have more than just hot or cold surface features to worry about. So very impressive numbers on either side of the peninsula. If you look, we have a nice swath rolling right through Tampa, St. Petersburg. I'm glad this isn't a drinking game because you're going to hear Tampa, St. Pete at least another 500 times. We all would die of alcohol poisoning. So Tampa, St. Pete, all the way down through Fort Myers, Charlotte Harbor, and even further down to the south into Florida Keys, we're going to have excessive ML cape. I was going to say mill cape. I guess that's kind of the same thing. And then along the East Coast, as those features or that shower and thunderstorm activity interacts with our Gulf Stream that's running right up on through here, you see that there's another resurgence of really good ML cape off the East Coast as well that could possibly bring us some East Coast waterspout activity. So very particular, very interesting setup we have here. It's kind of like anybody's best guess. If you go east, you're going to see something. If you go west, you're going to see something. To answer your question, Sharon, Boca Raton is definitely going to be in for the hammer with this, because as our system moves in from the west and southwest along the western coastline of Florida, you're going to have that wraparound pressure gradient associated with our low deepening as it comes in, coupled with that easterly flow that's been pummeling us for the last 24 to 30 hours now, associated with our high pressure and temperature advection along the east coast. So naturally, you're going to have some confluence at the surface. You're going to have turbulent mixing with our showers and storms, and you're essentially going to get buffeted right up on the shoreline because of the orientation of the winds. And then eventually, you're going to have all that precip sneaking in from your west because of the storm approaching. Now, I've been actually dusting off all my old Air Force weather material, all my old Air Force weather training material, because I'm looking at a lot of the different severe indices, and I'm looking at the lifted index here. And the lifted index is also a very good indication of whether or not you're going to have the characteristics in your storms to produce just guard variety air mass thunderstorms, pulse-like thunderstorms, supercellular thunderstorms, tornadic thunderstorms. Believe it or not, you don't always get a tornado out of a supercell, believe it or not. So if you look through here, as that storm approaches, our lifted indexes, without a doubt, go off the chart, especially up along the eastern coastline and along the southwest and western coastline, particularly in through western and central Florida, right through here. These are going to be lifted indexes between -4 and -6. And if I'm not mistaken, anywhere from -2 and on, any further down the negative scale, you're in a chance for severe weather. If you're already approaching -4 to -6 in that indice, you're definitely in the ballpark for severe weather. And if you guys look at this chart here, we have nothing but -6, -5, -4, -5, -6, scraping right up from Fort Charlotte. Now I'm combining things. Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, all the way up through the Tampa Bay area. So we don't want to discount the lifted indexes off the coast. We have all the way up to -6 and -8 right over the top of the Gulf Stream waters. And the Bahamas as well. If I have any folks tuning in from the Bahamas, we're also going to have the potential for some severe weather and flooding out there. Which also, I'm going to air this out. I thought about this earlier and I wanted to post it, but at the same time I decided against it. I'm going to go ahead and let it rip. I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. Let me have a sip of coffee first. Okay, I've been watching a lot of YouTube coverage. I've been looking at a lot of social media coverage and other weather sources, both unofficial and official, covering this situation. And I have to say, and I have a lot of viewers once again joining us tonight, please answer in the chat if you agree with me and if you've witnessed this during the hurricane season. But I heard a lot of big names out there commenting and mentioning in their own video coverage, it doesn't take a named system to be life-threatening, to be extreme, to be dangerous. I haven't heard anyone say anything like that in regards to this setup here. I've heard, rain, possible flooding, maybe a tornado, but we'll be okay. Why the difference? That's just me. I could be wrong. I think this is definitely a setup to where it warrants the same type of explanation. It doesn't take a named storm in the hurricane season to provide us with an onslaught of very dangerous weather. And everybody who constantly was beating that upside the head during the hurricane season has not said jack about the Gulf Coast, about the Southeast, about Florida. I've heard it about the cold front going through the Bahamas, going through Jamaica, Cayman Islands, and Cuba. Okay, but Floridians are people too, even though we have some very, very extravagant and bizarre individuals in the state of Florida. But, and that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I'm going to say. I haven't heard it. During hurricane season, we had rain and tropical waves and little weak disturbances with some showers. And, it doesn't take a named system to blow something up. And it's like, well, again, same. It literally is an organized system just with no name. Why are we not echoing the same sentiments to warn people in its path? Anyways, all right, so let's continue. Pat, I see your comment, dude. You'll have to instruct me on how to possibly let you in the stream. But let's continue on real quick. We're almost through. Here is our bulk shear amounts as we go over the next few days. And if you guys look, bulk shear is what's going to help to determine where our most substantial rotation is likely to take place. And there you have it. I mean, take your picking. This is going to be Sunday. This is overnight Saturday night into Sunday. Look at all this really good shear that's moving right into Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, just to the south of that area, moving closer to Naples, Sarasota. And then we also have that really intense surge of wind shear up along the East Coast, right around that area, Sharon, you were asking, Boca Raton. So we'll definitely see what happens. Tornado Genesis, I remember you posted on your Instagram not too long ago that it's kind of up in the air where it is we go. West Florida, it looks like we're good to go. East Florida, it looks like we're good to go. You know, at this point, we could do a gigantic loop. It won't take us too long. I believe without traffic, especially for traveling during the early morning hours or late evening hours of Saturday, we could likely make it across the peninsula within 2.5, maybe 3 hours, depending. You know, on stops, my car is a V6 premium, so it'll probably eat gas like a mofo, but, you know, pardon my language, I'm abbreviating it, but yeah. So lots of good wind shear, and especially look at how it surges right over top Tampa Bay. So, you know, I'm still thinking we're going to do a southwest to western Florida storm chase and maybe pan back into central Florida and follow the whereabouts of these systems as they move inland. And then last but not least, here we go. Here's our SIG-TORN parameters with the NAM 3 kilometer. And as you go through time, there you go. Good possibilities of some tornadic activity right through Fort Myers, spanning into central Florida. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Start here and then just kind of back build with these systems as they move through the peninsula. So definitely a solid target area if you wanted to pick your choosings or pick your poison. Solid target area right in through here, even further south if you wanted to make a case, and then southeast Florida spanning up the coastline, more particularly where that Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Boca area kind of juts out is where we'll likely see a little bit of that Gulf Stream enhancement with these storms. Looks like the southeast portion of Florida, like Fort Lauderdale, will get some pretty good action. Yes, Brando 69, absolutely. Yep. It's kind of, it's going to encompass a large majority of South Florida and Central Florida for sure. To the north is where it kind of gets a little more sporadic. Ready to add you to my call when you are. I can't see the message all the way through. Something Storms United is also tuning in. Somebody else commented, or somebody else comments so his chat can go up real quick. I can't read the full sentence because of the little heart emoji. Could this system turn into a TS? Absolutely not. No, this is definitely a cold core system with subtropical characteristics associated with it. Ready to add you to my call when you are, sir? Okay, now I see. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're only 26 minutes in. Discord. Go ahead, Pat, whenever you're ready. I just hope that we can pick it up on the microphone. I'll have my volume all the way up. Where's my little phone stand? It's here somewhere. And here we go. Use my little phone stand. So Jacksonville shouldn't get many tornadoes. Not necessarily Eric Money Star. No, I don't think so. I think Jacksonville is going to be kind of out of the realm of very, very significant activity. A large majority of that instability is going to follow the Gulf Stream, as you can kind of see already here on this model. Yes.
All right.
There we go. All right. Got you guys on speaker.
Okay. I want to see if everyone can hear us. First off, on the stream, I'm tuned in right now. So,
chat, if you guys can hear everybody clearly, please slam that one button or type 1 in the chat. Pretty please.
Can you guys hear us in chat, first of all? Yeah, I can hear. Okay, all right, yeah, you guys can hear us. All right, so Weather Center Rosario, first of all, how are you doing?
Very good, very good. Having a good time talking storm chasing for tomorrow and Sunday.
Okay, so I came here with a little bit of a surprise with you. I did bring the admin I was talking to you about, but I also brought a couple other people as well, since they have stuff they'd like to add on as well. But because Connor, who's the admin I was talking to you about, Connor, meet my friend Weather Center Nazario.
Connor, hello there.
Hello.
Okay. All right. Connor is from around Wilmington, North Carolina, and
Oh.
I want him to come on to your stream to kind of explain some of the impacts the Carolinas could see at a more local scale, because he's been spamming me all week about what was going on, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to kind of talk about this, because he's really it looks like he's going to get affected pretty hard by this. So Connor, go ahead and take the floor.
All right, so first of all, how is everyone doing today?
Solid.
Everyone's doing solid. All right, so we are looking at the coastal low that is first affecting Florida and then into the Carolinas. So let me use the ECM model here because it's a well-trusted one.
We're just doing this through Nazario, he's streaming this through Discord, so he's going to kind of explain what he's seeing through windy.com, which I know is a website you like to use. So
Yeah.
if the audience can't see it, we're just using it because Connor's using that as his visual aid. So we're kind of going through three separate lines of communication to get you this info. So Connor, go ahead.
All right, so first we're going to talk about the precipitation for the event. So on the ECM model, it's showing the first surge of precipitation for southern South Carolina, the first light surge by 10 p.m. Then by 2 a.m. on Sunday, some really heavy rain spreading just south of Charleston area for South Carolina. Then at 7 in the morning, Charleston just gets slammed with heavy rain. Savannah, Georgia, too. That's actually the main push of the convection from that low. And then as you move forward, at 10 in the morning, downtown Charleston is in the worst of it at that point. Really heavy rainfall rates, up to 2 inches every 3 hours possible. So that's going to be an issue. Then as you head into 1 o'clock on Sunday, 1 and 2 o'clock, it moves into the Wilmington area. Myrtle Beach gets hit hard. Wilmington gets hit hard with the rain. Charleston still seeing some rain as well. But then as you move off to 3, the worst of it is 5 o'clock. The worst of it's kind of shifting away from Wilmington, at least rain-wise, into the Outer Banks area, New Bern, all those places. But then there's some backside storms forming on the backside of this low back near Charleston. And then at 8 o'clock on Sunday night, those backside storms with the backside part of the low starts coming through Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington area. So there's the rain aspect. Now in terms of total precipitation for the next 3 days on the ECM, coastal South Carolina and North Carolina should see an easy 2 to 4 inches. Easy.
That makes sense.
Easy right. 2 to 4. But the ECM is highlighting just west of Charleston as a bullseye of half a foot of rain.
Yeah, so we were looking at that earlier while we were doing your synopsis. About 7 inches.
That would be catastrophic in a major area.
Now the wind gusts. Wind gusts will be a big concern as well. So honestly, the winds don't really start to really pick up until about sunrise on Sunday morning for Charleston, the coastal South Carolina area. That's when it really starts to pick up. Then by 8 in the morning with that surge of rain I told you about in Charleston, downtown Charleston at this point, according to the ECM, is showing 56-mile-an-hour wind gust on Kiwa Island, I think that's how you say it, 60-mile-an-hour wind gust there, according to this. And then as it pushes further to the northeast, these winds get funneled into the Myrtle Beach area, 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts.
It's quite concerning. It's a quite concerning situation that we're looking at with that.
And right along the border of South and North Carolina as well, 55 gusts. But then at 2 o'clock, for whatever reason, there's an amplification with the wind just south of Wilmington, right near the Cape of right at Cape Fear, by Bullhead Island. It's showing 67-mile-an-hour wind gusts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Now, this is the European model, right?
Yep, the European. Yep.
Yeah. That's, if that were to happen, that's obviously going to be quite concerning. Nazario, hearing all this right
Yes.
now. Like, what do you think of all? What do you think of what you're hearing is what you're hearing. This is obviously going to be a concern no matter what. But what's your thoughts so far?
Oh no, I absolutely am in full agreement with this. Unfortunate reality is we're going to see some very good severe weather action here in Central and South Florida. But as I have up on my screen here on the YouTube live stream, someone requested we look at our wave heights and the direction of our waves, just as one example, one parameter to examine. And as this system continues to undergo cyclogenesis and pulls in support directly from our polar front jet and kind of jumps jets to not get tongue-tied, we're only going to see this continue to intensify as it moves through the rest of the southeast United States into the mid-Atlantic region, and it becomes essentially a bomb cyclone at that point, at least based on what our ensembles and what most of our deterministic models are thinking. So rain rates are going to go up. Sea height swells, conditions along the coast are rapidly going to get worse, unfortunately, especially as you go through South and North Carolina because of the orientation of the land along the eastern seaboard. And then naturally, you're going to have that interaction with even more polar air from the Great Lakes, Midwest, Canadian provinces as it continues up the East Coast. And yeah, so I'm in full agreement with what we're discussing.
Okay, so I'm looking at this right now. You're pulling, you're pulling up the models about 44 hours out. Is that 40 to 50 feet of waves that are in the Atlantic over the coast of the southeast U.S. right there?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. And then once the orientation of the winds begins to pummel the western half of Florida, we could see an increase between 10 to 15 feet, projected anyways. Obviously, we'll have to analyze this and see what happens as this shakes out and really develops into a closed cyclone. But this is what the Euro is definitely forecasting.
Can I talk about the threat for flooding in Florida?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. The Carolinas aren't the only place getting impacted. I want Connor to emphasize that while he was here.
There is one more thing I would like to say about the Carolinas before we get to Florida.
Okay. All right. Connor, you go ahead first, and then we'll continue from there.
And Nazario, you probably agree with this. The storm surge is going to be the worst for the Carolinas, hands down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's showing 2 to 3 foot storm surge for my county. Parts of the eastern facing beaches, 2 to 4 isolated 5 foot storm surge.
In fact, we actually got something as well. We actually have a tweet we have pulled up in our Discord chat. Potentially potentially to 3 to 4 feet of storm surge north of the Tampa Bay area. 2 to 3 for St. Petersburg and Hillsborough counties, and then 1 to 2 feet for pretty much from Sarasota all the way down to Monroe County. So this isn't just a Carolina threat. So I wanted to say. Yeah, I was gonna. Go. So yeah, go right ahead and talk a little bit more about that. I was kind of using that as a segue.
I'm not. So if you look in the National Weather Service Tampa Bay forecast, and then you go to the coastal flood watch or whatever, it says that significant coastal flooding is possible with roads and homes inundated by water. There's going to be 3 to 4 feet of storm surge on the Big Bend before it finally pushes off. And we looked at a model run. I'm not sure what model this is, but it showed like swaths of 6 to 8 inches from Florida to the Carolinas.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting to think about. Nazario, what's your take on all this?
Again, I'm in full agreement with what we're collaborating right now. I actually have on my end of the spectrum once again pulled up. I know we typically use the terminology rapid intensification for tropical systems, but I'm using the 12Z European model right now to demonstrate how within the span of 12 to 18 hours, all of our models are in agreement that this thing is going to deepen from about maybe 1,998 out over the eastern Gulf of Mexico down to 983 millibars in less than 24 hours and continue to deepen from that point on. So it's going to definitely turn into a bomb cyclone as it continues up towards the northeast. So believe it or not, the only difference in impacts are going to vary as it makes that ascension into the upper latitudes, because we're transitioning from a modified tropical polar environment here in the southeast quadrant of the United States. As that modification continues, we're going to become more of a cold core barotropic system as we get to the northeast. So yeah, naturally we're going to see the phenomena change, but it's only going to get worse as the system strengthens.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So, all right. So, now that we've kind of gone over that, Blue, you have been kind of silent through this whole thing. Is there anything you want to talk about this and emphasize that we haven't covered just yet?
Yeah. Firstly, I wanted to say thanks for having me on. But secondly, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry.
I've just been letting you guys speak and not wanting to interrupt.
Oh, it's fine. Floor's yours.
Just the thing I wanted to talk about is I know that we were looking at earlier. We were looking at tornadoes and stuff in Florida and also the Carolinas and just severe weather and stuff with this on the NAM and also a little bit the HRRR, but mainly the NAM. I don't know if Nazario is going to pull that up or not, but on his stream. But basically, we were looking at how there was going to be like a surge of like Cape due to it. And I'm sorry if I'm stuttering a lot.
It's okay. It's just breathe and just say what you need to say.
Yeah, just been a while since I've streamed. But there's supposed to be like a surge of Cape up from Florida up into the coastal Carolinas, and that made Connor kind of a little bit nervous. And while obviously there's not going to be like anything that much, he was also looking at the SIG Tour parameters, and there was definitely a little bit of a push, but like not too much. He looked at it, and there was not too much. Again, I'm sorry, I've not streamed it.
I get it. Just relax, and just say what you need to say. Just take a deep breath if you need to. We're all friends here, right? We're all getting along. We're doing good.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chat's hanging tough on the stream too, thankfully. I really appreciate you guys hanging tough out there on YouTube.
Yeah, thanks. This is our first time back since in a while. It's been a wild last couple of weeks for me personally, so it's good to be back.
There you go. Welcome back.
Thanks. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously storm surge and stuff is going to be the main threat. My concern with severe is going to be if somehow the low goes more inland rather than going out over the sea, because that would mean that there would be more area for the warm sector and stuff to have room to do its work, because if that happens, in the Carolinas and in Georgia even could have a little bit more room for that. But as of right now, the low is projected to go back out over the Atlantic a little bit before then going back inland between Charleston and Wilmington, probably near Myrtle Beach.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's all right. Perfect. Blue, is there anything else you want to highlight?
Obviously, storm surge main threat right now.
Especially, of course, it's
in the Big Bend region and in Wilmington area are going to be two big areas. Rainfall, big threat. Especially in the Carolinas and in parts of Florida, but overall, just important to stay aware.
Yeah.
There is something too that I know it's not like it is related to the storm in a way. So you know how there's a lot of cold air coming in behind it?
Yep.
There is going to be incredible cold behind it for my area, actually. So it's showing, 70 degrees on Sunday. It's showing 70 with the low.
Okay.
Then on Monday it's showing 60, but then a low of 33, and Tuesday our high will be 44 degrees with a low of 24.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
This storm's going to funnel in a lot of cold air behind it. If there was more moisture wrapped on the backhand side, we would have been talking about a major snowstorm potentially, but there's just not a lot of moisture to work with behind it.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
It's too
Exactly.
warm especially even in New England as well for it to snow. So yeah, it's just.
There's also so another app you guys can look at, and I don't know if Nazario knows. He probably does.
Oh.
Surfline. Surfline. Check it out. Surfline, you'll be able to see. It'll show you like the wind gusts, the winds, the waves and knots, the directions of the swells, everything.
Yeah. All right. So does everyone here? We got a question in on the chat. Will this storm move in on low or high tide? Connor, I think you and Nazario would be the most applicable to answer this, since Connor, you're from North Carolina. Nazario, you're in Florida. So, like, what's your so is this going to be moving through low or high tide? This is going to be important for flood risk.
Well, let's let Nazario cover the Florida section, and then I'll cover the Carolinas.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Trying to look right now. Gonna take a look real fast.
All right.
See what we got.
All right. I'm just asking, since someone was asking on the in the chat. So yeah.
Today's the 15th. Let's go all the way through.
Yeah, let's see if we can pull that up.
Is it coming in? So wait, I'm just gonna answer real quick for well.
So.
I don't want to steal Connor's spotlight, but I just looked it up for Wilmington. What time's it coming in for Wilmington? You said, Connor.
It looks like the worst of the wind, or at least the rain. The rain and the wind really pushes in around like 12 or 1 in high tides at noon.
Yeah.
So it's been right at high tide pretty much for Wilmington.
Yeah, because I'm seeing.
That's really not good. That's not good.
I'm seeing the high tide for on Saturday is at 12, and then the next day the high tide is at 1.
All right. Yikes.
So Sunday is at 1. So if it's coming in at noon on Sunday, we'll do the math.
Yeah, it's actually my high tide on Sunday, because I think for Florida it's a little different. Well, actually, because I'm further south. Because
honestly, I'd rather it come in at or just after high tide than just before high tide. Because if it's coming in just before high tide, it's coming in with the tide.
Exactly.
That's what I was just about to point out. I have the Fort Myers, West Florida information pulled up between Friday and Saturday. And high tide for Friday, tomorrow morning, is going to be at 3:42 a.m. And then Saturday, unfortunately, it's going to be coming in at 4:35 a.m. So if you extrapolate that out, Sunday, as we're seeing most of that southwesterly and westerly wind component, it's going to be somewhere around that same general area. So it will be more or less coming in with the tide.
Okay, that's good to know. So I hope that answered your question. But yeah, we're just. But yeah, it's a really important thing that we need to talk about, because it's like when that tide comes in is going to make or break how much flooding is going to happen. Because if this was coming in a low tide, it wouldn't be optimal, but it would be the best case scenario. But high tide's the worst case scenario in any case when it comes to nor'easters.
Especially if it's coming in with the high tide, I'd say. Like, I'd rather come in like at the high tide rather than like an hour before high tide, because I just hate it coming in as the high tide is peaking.
Yeah.
So what's likely to happen for us in Western Florida? It's going to come in before high tide and kind of work its way in with it. Sunday, it's confirmed 5:35 a.m. is when we're going to see about approximately a 1.3 feet increase in our tide as it rolls in Sunday morning, and the worst is expected to be just off the coastline around midnight to 1 a.m. Sunday. So,
yeah. All right. So, okay. So, is there any other questions you guys want us to answer before we get off? Because I know some of us have.
I want to
go right ahead.
talk about the tornado threat and see everybody's
absolutely.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about the storm surge so much we completely negated the tornado threat. So go right ahead.
I feel like that's really the least of our concerns, but I want to hear what WX Center has to say about it.
Yeah, Nazario, what do you think about the tornado threat?
So, it's very interesting what we have going on because 9 times out of 10, when we're looking for significant tornado parameters, the 3 main ingredients we want are going to be our buoyancy, our cape, our wind shear, and then naturally just a little bit of vorticity to get these things going. But what I'm concerned about is the fact that we have different amalgamations, if you will, of parameters that are going to help to influence how much rotation we get out of these storms. Looking at all of our convective indices, we're definitely in the ballpark to see rope-like tornadoes between F0 and F1 intensity, 110%. We can't rule out interior funnel cloud activity through parts of Central Florida, South Central Florida near the Lake Okeechobee region, and then especially along the East Coast near our Gulf Stream current, because that's only going to help to further intensify this system. And I think one parameter that the models are definitely neglecting, which they did almost all hurricane season, and I hate to kind of throw that in the mix because obviously it's December, the calendar hurricane season is over with.
I know,
but if we pull up, I'm going to pull up Tropical Tidbits. Let's see if it's actually, nope, it's still not working, unfortunately. I don't know what's up with it. But there's a nice little pocket of warmer temps still in the Gulf of Mexico that could support tropical storm formation or hurricane formation. The only reason I mention that is because we're going to have this cold core baroclinic system that's going to try to take jet support and frontogenicize fronts with it and develop a good warm and cold conveyor belt, but it's also going to have what you could argue are tropical characteristics closer to the center. And I think that's only going to intensify how much of a shear component we get out of this storm, as opposed to if it were just a frontal system, just a polar low or something along those lines. So now we have a mixture of tropical, subtropical characteristics aiding in isolated bouts of rotation within our squall-like features with this center of circulation. But then we also have to deal with the fact that dry air, as we've already mentioned in the stream, we have cold air advection being funneled in by the close proximity of our polar front jet across the Gulf Coast. So we're going to have dry air entrainment alongside cold air pummeling right into this warm conveyor of modified air over the peninsula, and I think that's why our ML cape and our surface-based cape are trying to go up. The models are just having a hard time with it because we are still under a modified air mass, so they're thinking it's not going to be as substantial as it could be. I'm a little concerned as to the full extent of how much tornado action we're going to get, because I know SPC has us in a level 2 risk. I saw on the Weather Channel that they have us on a Torcon of 3. I want to say we could probably be somewhere in the 4, if not 5 realm, in my personal opinion. That's just my professional opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not, quote, a degreed meteorologist. I only have 10 years of official experience forecasting stuff like this. But just looking at all the different dynamics and then also taking into account the modification of this system as it moves, that's going to be the key here. I do think that the tornado threat might be a little bit higher, particularly along our coastlines, just like we saw back in October with that October 11th, 12th subtropical entity is what we'll call it that hit northern Central Florida. We saw 25 to 35 tornado-warned storms with that F2 that transitioned from a waterspout into a full-fledged tornado in the West Florida, Tampa Bay area. So this is definitely going to be a repeat of that. Possibly times 2, because we have a more organized cyclone on our hands as opposed to just a disorganized blob of energy.
All right.
I also have a question.
What's up, Connor?
Nazario, what do you think about the tornado threat for the Carolinas too? Because I saw a surge too of Cape, and I also saw a warm sector surge with an immediate cold. Like a cold air right behind that warm surge. So I was wondering if there was a tornado threat with that as well.
So it's going to be difficult to pinpoint that because right now most of our models think it's literally going to ride the coastline of the East Coast. And what I think we could possibly see, just because of, the geographic layout of the Mid-Atlantic region. You know, the Cape Hatteras area in particular is the furthest east you can go on the United States landmass to an extent, unless you continue up the latitudes up into the northeast region. I think that is probably where we could see some waterspout activity, mainly because we're finally going to pick up polar front jet support and define our cold sector or our cold conveyor belt on the west side of this system. And luckily, through that general area, by now we will have fully modified into a polar type system, and a lot of the severe weather may stay off the coast for the most part, depending on obviously where this system wiggles and wobbles. I can pull up on my YouTube stream. I don't know if you guys are currently watching, but if you look at the interaction between our subtropical jet over the south, our El Nino jet is what I'll call it, right in through here, and then we have our polar front jet troughing across the interior United States, moving through the southeast, the Midwest, the Appalachians. It's when that system, about the 48 to 72 hour mark, really moves up. You can see that our jet becomes negatively tilted, but that negative tilt kind of stays off into the western Atlantic. So we kind of have that going for us. A large majority of what could possibly be very intense weather should remain off over or out to sea, as opposed to, unfortunately, Florida is going to have it come right overhead. And with the position of where that low is, earlier this week, we were projecting whether or not we would see the center actually migrate far enough to the north to realize that temperature discontinuity in the dew points, the dry warm air, or the dry cool air, and the warm moist tropical air coming up out of the Caribbean, out of the Bahamas, out of the Gulf. And now, sad to say, which is why SPC has the southern half of the peninsula highlighted, we're going to see that general area of contrast or conflicting atmosphere environment, if you want to call it that, over the state of Florida as opposed to the south. So I think our saving grace in the Mid-Atlantic region, particularly because of the way it's oriented, is going to be the track of the low. Pat, if you watch on YouTube, I'll kind of draw the projected path. It's going to come over top Florida, possibly somewhere around Tampa Bay, and continue up in this fashion, like so. And if I were to use a different color ink here, that means our most significant weather is likely to start in that little kind of really broad brush triangle here and continue to extrapolate up like this. Whereas a lot of the bona fide polar air, possible snowfall and rain activity is going to be what comes off the mid-Atlantic coast, off the northeast, just because of not only our low-level flow, the wraparound cyclonic turning of our low, but also the jet in the upper levels that are going to be influencing this.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I have a question here. I'm sorry to interrupt a little bit, but there's actually an interesting question from Thomas Denton I want to talk about. Is this stuff I have to learn? I'm starting uni next term on meteorology. I'm not going to be as good as Nazario, but is there any way you can help point stuff out to me that will get me ready? Well, to answer the first part of your question, break this down. First of all, I'm glad you're going to school for meteorology. Shout out to you for doing that. Yes. I'm doing that right now. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Second thing. The second thing is, can you help us? Yeah. The Storms United Discord server, we can help you out with that. Dave, Nazario, if you don't mind, could I do a quick shameless plug for a good friend here?
Yeah, go for it. I'm not opposed.
All right. So I just sent the link to our Discord server. Thomas, if you're still here, be sure to join it. We'll get you acquainted, and we'll give you some basic terms and basic pointers on what the stuff looks like. And as for, I'm not going to be as good as Nazario. I mean, come on, you don't know that. Don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, it's you never know. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right. All right, so sorry I got sidetracked right there, but I saw that. I was like, yeah, I figured I should answer that. So, yeah, all right. Sorry, guys. I keep talking.
Alrighty, folks. Well, what I'm going to do is jump off of the Discord chat and start wrapping up my live stream. We're about to hit the hour mark. Thankfully, YouTube has not booted us yesterday for some reason.
I wanted to ask real quick, Nazario, do you have a Discord server?
I don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of got him introduced to Discord, so. Yeah, it's
Well, you should
okay.
make one.
Oh, well, I need to get up to speed on not only Discord, but I know a few folks have been recommending I make a Twitter/X already, and I've been slacking on that. So I definitely have to do my homework on both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll help you out with that, and we'll help you out with that. And for everyone tuning in, we'll also keep you updated if Nazario is not available on the stuff that's coming in the next 48 hours. We're probably going to get off as well, so you can wrap things up. But for those of you who don't know who I am Pat's Path Predictor. The folks that you talk to are part of our group called Storms United. We like weather as much as anyone, and we like to talk about extreme weather and any kind of weather on any type of day across the world. So if you want to come check us out, link to our Discord server is in the chat. If you want to take a look at it. Also, if you want to, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want to get some see some more content from me, I'm 2 subscribers away from 5,000, so that's pretty cool. Nazario, I remember I was talking to you when you hit your big milestone. So
Yep.
Yeah, here we go. We're getting there ourselves, but yeah, thanks for having us on. To the rest of you guys, do you have anything you would like to say?
Go subscribe to Past Path Predictor and subscribe to WX Center Nazario.
Appreciate you guys.
You're welcome.
Be weather aware, most importantly.
Of course. Everyone's goal here is to get people engaged with weather. Yep. That's our number one goal. That's why we do this stuff. So
yes.
Yeah. All right. I guess that's it. You guys have anything else you want to say?
No, I think we've covered everything.
All right, Nazario, thanks for having us on. I'm sorry we crashed your party a bit, but it was.
I wouldn't say crashed it. Definitely an interactive experience. We got to try to make this a little more podcast style in the future. If anything, it'd be nice.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'll see you guys later. I'll be on tomorrow talking about this and covering the main event. Nazario, let me know what you need me to help you with, and I'll help you with that. But with that being said, have a wonderful evening, everybody. Stay safe.
All right, guys.
You as well.
Yeah. All right. Nazario, go ahead and take it away.
Appreciate it. All right, guys. Hanging up Discord. We're going to go back to the live chat. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate the collaboration for sure.
We're glad we were on, too. Thank you very much for having us.
Very welcome.
All right.
Thank you for having us. We'll see you later.
All right.
Very welcome. Bye, guys. All righty, guys. So we're back. Definitely very interested in doing things like that a lot more often. I know tonight was a little uncanny, obviously, because it was through my phone. Kind of the preliminary or the pre-Cambrian stages of the Weather Channel. Eventually, very soon, I would like to do some kind of a multi-platform podcast-style collaboration like this. Kind of why I floated the idea to Pat's Path Predictor that we do some kind of collab tomorrow during my storm chasing while I'm in the field. He can be in camera, on the mic, doing overlays and whatnot, model data for you guys. As we get ready to wrap up the stream, though, kind of like what I was breaking down while we were on the phone with everyone, this is why I do think a large majority of the severe weather action is going to be off the coastline for our guys up the eastern seaboard into the northeastern United States. This temperature advection chart does an excellent job of highlighting that. You can see we have another bona fide push of polar air, another frontal system that's coming through the Midwest, Great Lakes, upper northern plains. And then we have this cold air that's getting pulled in on the backside of it, associated with that breakaway piece of the polar front jet. And then we have all of our subtropical and tropical air up along the front side of it, still well off the coast. And you can see our low-level jet is now over into the western Atlantic, which is good. So a large majority of that general area, or I should say a large area where we could see most of that severe action that we're going to experience down here in Florida is going to be right about where I'm drawing with my pen. And now, granted, I know this has some of the northeastern United States highlighted under this. Don't be alarmed. That's mainly because we haven't seen enough of the pull from the low. The low is still somewhere down in through here, and as it continues to ride the eastern seaboard, we're going to see this other frontal system, this other band of temperature discontinuity, another polar bout pulled in alongside with it, and that's going to help to evacuate that warm conveyor from out of the Northeast, out of Quebec, Nova Scotia, and eastern Canadian provinces. So I do think we in Florida are going to experience most of the modified tropical elements with this. All right, let's go ahead and let's start getting ready to wrap up. In the background, while we were also briefing through Discord, I also had a couple different charts kind of overlaid for you guys. This is how we're going to get ready to wrap up. It's going to be a widespread wind event for a lot of folks. You can see here, this is our ARW model, one of our other high-res models that come out with this event. And again, Southwest and West Florida going to be under the gun for the most substantial weather activity, and the East Coast is going to see that pressure gradient force wind event for an extended period of time down into the Bahamas as well. So regardless, we're definitely going to see very, very good impacts from it. Is it going to be a life-changing, a life-threatening scenario? There's a 5% chance it could be if you put yourself into a bad situation. I'm going to put it out there. And it's not hype. It's not scare tactics. This is a situation to where if you do ignore all possible odds, all possibilities that come out of a situation like this, you could land in a bad spot. Is it overall generally going to be a bad situation for everybody involved? Not necessarily, no. Not at all, as a matter of fact. This is not something you really want to evacuate from. This is not something you want to really shelter in place for. Is it good to be, as everyone mentioned in the Discord chat, whether aware of what's happening in your local area? 110%. Situational awareness is the name of the game. That's how you stay safe, regardless of what the situation is. And that's kind of how we're going to wrap up the stream. So West and East Florida, we're under the gun for some moderate tropical storm force winds, if not greater, depending on how organized this low gets. And as it continues up the eastern seaboard, it's only going to undergo further strengthening, cyclogenesis, whatever you want to use to describe it, and continue to funnel more cold air from up north down. So that's kind of helped to modify it, which is another reason why I'll also touch on what happens in the Caribbean, because I've been seeing a lot of channels focusing more so on the Caribbean than they are with the Southeast United States, which is such a bummer. If you watch, and this as the system goes along, it's nice to see that the European model is finally picking up on the fact that we're going to have this frontal tail modify out. So I know I keep going back and forth pretty quickly, but there's a lot of sources out there that are really worried about this piece that's going to drape itself all the way through the Caribbean and back up to the eastern side of this system. Now, what we have to remember is our Caribbean is still very hot. The Caribbean is still very hot. We're still between 28 to 30 degrees Charlie out there. Easily hurricane season type temperatures out there. We could technically, and please don't misconstrue this, I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot saying this on a live stream. We could technically see a major hurricane out there. Technically, a big technicality just based off of the water temperatures. We are in no way, shape, or form in a favorable season environment, whatever you want to put on the table to support tropical cyclogenesis. But all I'm saying is that the waters are still hot. And so as a result, as this air mass, as our cold air mass continues to surge down to the south, there's a lot of folks out there who are telling folks in Cayman Islands, in Belize, parts of Honduras, Nicaragua, even in Jamaica, the Bahamas. You know, the Bahamas are my number one concern, in my opinion, with that frontal boundary, because you're in more colder water. You're already in modified polar/tropical air, so you're going to have enough of that air mass environment to where you could still see really good discontinuity along the frontal band, and it could bring up some very hellacious thunderstorm and wind activity. In the Caribbean, however, that front is going to weaken very quickly, and it's going to modify because of the surface that it's passing over, i.e. those hot waters. So it's really not going to carry as much energy or a significant impact as a lot of folks are claiming. We're probably still going to get some heavy rain out of it. We're probably still going to see some isolated lightning and thunderstorms, undoubtedly, because it's a front and it's a strong one because of the subtropical jet. But we're not going to have anything extreme like I've been seeing a couple other YouTube sources out there mentioning, which is, you know, very weird. I don't know why. But yeah, guys. To bring this full circle, now that I have tropical tidbits showing, we're going to go over to the NAM 3-kilometer. Oh, gosh. Well, never mind. There it goes. We lost it again. Anyways, we're going to start getting ready to wrap up the stream. We'll finish up by looking once again at our Google Maps just to get a feel for what it is that tomorrow is going to have in store. So, yeah. Our general area where we are likely to see most of our severe activity, based off of the general consensus, Tampa Bay is definitely under the gun for certain. But after examining a few different things during the stream, during the collaboration on Discord, I think this general area of Florida, if we're talking peninsula of Florida, outside of the Everglades, unpopulated areas, and the Keys, this general area is at a slightly higher advantage at seeing more severe weather. And then just because of the geographic orientation here, how West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale juts out near the Gulf Stream, I do think we are also at a chance of seeing some really good severe weather right in through this general area. So these are our two hot spots. And then naturally, as we were discussing earlier, we're going to start seeing these bands propagate like so. I know it looks like I'm drawing water waves, but that's essentially how it's going to extrapolate forward when you have your low pressure system here getting closer to landfall. It's just only going to expand off to the northeast. So I'm thinking if I clear my ink out of the way, I'm probably going to start right up in through here. And depending on what traffic is like, I may either take I-4 out to Tampa and then follow the 75 south into Fort Myers and posture up somewhere around the 4 or 5 o'clock time frame, maybe even a little earlier than that, depending on, I want to say this is probably a 2.5 hour drive. Granted, if I go during peak traffic hours, we're probably going to see a longer drive time than that. But from here, it's anybody's best guess. We'll have to see what these waves are doing as they come ashore, and I'm either going to backtrack up back towards where my neighborhood is and follow these systems as they move inland, or I'm simply just going to retreat back up towards the Tampa-St. Pete area and try to ride out when the most severe sustained winds and gusts, storm surge, flooding is possibly to take place. So that's the game plan. I don't think I'm going to mess with East Florida. As much as I would like to, I honestly think we're going to go ahead and save that for a hurricane or another future event, depending on how everything shakes out. Orlando, I saw someone mention in here, Orlando is definitely under the gun for severe weather as well. As I mentioned, with these waves propagating up, you're going to see them transition like so as they come in. And eventually, Orlando area is going to be under the gun for some feeder band activity or whatever you want to call it, squall line activity, rope appendages of, wraparound moisture, regardless. And we'll go ahead and go over to Storm Prediction Center real quick just to show you guys that, see if they've updated our charts at all. Let's go back to day 2. All right, here we go. So this is basically... so we're still at the 5% chance for Miami, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Hialeah, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale. So they're highlighting the same general areas we talked about here. And as you can see in the 2 percentile of the level 1 risk, we have Orlando, Spring Hill, Deltona, Daytona Beach, and Port Orange, Florida. So a lot of us are going to be under the gun for some serious activity. But as we talked about during the stream, because of the orientation of our storm and our environmental flows in the low, mid, and upper levels of the atmosphere, the general consensus is going to be along the coastlines of the southern half of the peninsula. And as we get ready to wrap up, we're going to end the stream looking ahead, because obviously we got to look ahead. And I think this, just based off of what we're seeing in some of our long-range data, is one of possibly many setups to where we're going to have more storm chasing, more severe weather in our neck of the woods. So let's go ahead and where is my precip? Where is my MSLP and precip? Why is it not here? All right, let me go ahead and just restart the models. Let's go to computer models. We'll go to GFS. And I want precip. Here we go. Surface and precipitation. Why am I not able to find? Let me use this. Here we go. All right. I don't know why it's not called MSLP and precip. So, obviously, we have our scenario that's unfolding. If we're watching the southeast, guys, okay? There's our scenario that's unfolding as we speak, riding up the eastern seaboard, deepening down, being a hellacious weather maker for the northeast as well, and then we're good for a while. But if you watch, El Nino is going to stay strong, and as we go through the loop, we're going to have another setup right there. There comes another one right after Christmas, and then another one right after that. What just happened to my loop? Why did it skip like that? I think 12Z did a better job of highlighting this. We'll go through the 12Z loop. So we're looking down across the southeast. There's wave 1. Then we have a nice little break. And then here comes wave 2 right there forming up. Wave 2. And then we have wave 3 that kind of sweeps in behind that, sneaks in. So I do believe that the rest of December, January possibly, is going to be very busy for us in the southeast. And then we have our atmospheric river setups for western United States, where we're going to see some pretty consistent onshore flow, especially for the Pac Northwest and British Columbia. Mick and Marley, thank you very much for the $10, the $9.99 donation. Thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. It's going right into my gas tank for sure. Severe weather for Central Florida. Yes, the weather boy for sure. For gas or food, Naz, stay safe, bruh. Prayers. I appreciate that, Mick and Marley. Mick, thank you very much for that. Genuinely, sincerely. Oh, yeah. I just realized my face is in the way. Let me go ahead and do, whoops, not that. Let me go ahead and take this. Can I grab my camera? There we go. I'm going to spin myself over this way and move this. There we go. Now you guys can see. So we have multiple scenarios to where we're going to see more possible severe weather. Our first system pummels through. Here comes another possible severe weather event for Dixie Alley. Then we have another system that spins up really rapidly in the Gulf, and then at the very tail end of the loop, you get another little system that tries to sneak over top of Florida. Can't really see it too much, and this is also probably going to adjust because we're so far into GFS La La Land, but you get the picture. The trend is we're going to have multiple waves coming out of that general region as we go through time. So, all right, guys, thank you very much for joining the live stream tonight. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I have a lot more analysis to do in the background, behind the scenes, to really nail down exactly what the plan is for tomorrow. And to answer, I forget who asked, but somebody did ask, we'll start streaming the trip. And just to give you guys a synopsis once again, when you do join the live stream, there's not going to be the fancy model overlays. We're not going to be looking at data. It's mainly just going to be commentary, almost vlog, observational style storm chasing for the most part. So that's what we have in store for tomorrow, and there's going to be a lot of live documenting via camera exactly what type of phenomena we have. If I have the cell service for it, I would like to stream during the worst of the storm. That's kind of my intent here, which is why I definitely need to do some research with my provider AT&T, with Spectrum, whoever, to get my hands on a Wi-Fi puck. So in the future, when I'm out storm chasing, I can continue to stream during the worst of it. That's the goal. So don't be surprised if between the hours of 3, maybe between 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m., you get a live stream on YouTube or some social media platform and it's just me talking to you guys and discussing what's happening. Don't be surprised. As we get into the evening hours, I will likely set up my camera equipment and provide a more thorough live stream like this. Granted, if the service is good enough, I'll have my camera equipment and my lighting to talk to you guys even in the dark. So we'll see what happens. Just understand that tomorrow is going to be definitely a very evolutionary period and a dynamic period for the channel specifically. There's going to be a lot of improvising. I'm going to tell you that right now too. So don't be surprised if there's technical difficulties, if there's issues while I'm driving, if there's latency in the stream, lag potentially while I'm on freeways, while I'm battling traffic. So just bear with me. Please give me as much flexibility and, just a little bit of professional courtesy as possible while I try to navigate what's going on out there. But we're going to be on the front lines for the first time in the Weather Center mobile, and I'm really excited to provide that kind of live coverage for you guys because it spells out what the future of this channel looks like, getting out there and providing you with the observations and the documentation and the live raw data as bad weather hits in the Florida area. And then eventually, if this channel continues to grow with your support, we can branch to the southeast and eventually to other areas as well. That's the goal long term. We're still only in month 4 of the channel, so I think we're doing pretty good for ourselves, all right? So tomorrow's a big day. I'm excited for all of us. I'm going to try to definitely bring you guys along for the ride. It's going to be a big thing. We're going to do it together. So wish all of us luck. Everyone, good luck to each and every one of us as we ride this out together. I'm going to be your liaison and the eyes in the back of your head as this system rolls through, all right? So we'll talk to you very soon. Again, thank you extravagantly from the bottom of my heart for joining me this evening, this Friday evening, December 15, 2023. First storm chase on the Weather Center. We're going to see how it goes. We're ready to rock and roll, guys, and we're going to do it big. We're going to be in the suck zone. All right. We'll talk to you very soon. All right. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, drop me a line on TikTok, Instagram, or leave me a comment in the live stream, and I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday night. Be safe. God bless. And we will be in touch. We have a big day and a big weekend ahead of us, guys. Talk to you soon. This is Weather Center Nazario signing